Oh, would you look at that? The Red Sox have a new friend to play with. Hello everyone, in today's video I'm going to be talking about the new Baseball America Top 100 prospect rankings that recently released this week and all of the Red Sox players who made that list. In their most recent update from September 3rd, the Boston Red Sox now have 6 players in their top 100 list, including 4 players in their top 26th and the number 2 overall prospect in baseball in Roman Anthony. This was an extremely exciting update for Red Sox fans, and I'm going to break it all down for you. So do me a favor and like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content, and we'll get right into it. Working our way from the bottom up, we have the youngest Red Sox prospect to land on this list, and that is Franklin Arias, ranked 94 overall. Arias is still just 18 years old and playing shortstop at Single-A Salem after recently being promoted there. He is someone who I have recently covered as a guy that could be the next number 1 prospect in the Red Sox system after some of the guys ahead of him graduate off the list in the next season or two, and has really developed at a significantly higher rate than some expected prior to the start of this year. Arias began the year at the Florida Complex League, which is basically where really young international players or high school draftees go when they first start playing professional baseball as an introduction to the minor leagues before they go into the primary levels. In the FCL, Arias absolutely dominated the competition this year. Arias played 51 games with 166 at-bats and slashed .355 with a .471 on-base percentage, a .584 slugging, a 10.55 OPS, and 6 home runs, 24 extra base hits, and 30 stolen bases in 34 attempts, and had a really strong 34 walk to 36 strikeout rate. These numbers would lead to him being named the Florida Complex League MVP, as well as being called the top overall MLB prospect in the Florida Complex League, which is basically saying that not only was he the best prospect there, he was also playing the best while he was there. Since his promotion to Single-A, Arias has seen 34 games there with some mixed results so far. He has a .243 batting average, a .673 OPS, and 3 home runs and a walk-to-strikeout rate of 14-28, which isn't amazing, but the advanced metrics give you a more encouraging picture. His 102 weighted runs created plus basically measures how effectively he is generating runs, where 100 is average, so he's doing slightly above average overall with that. And his batting average on balls in play is only .284, which is pretty low for a player like Arias and indicates that he's getting a little unlucky. Probably the biggest positive takeaway from this time in Single-A though is after some growing pains when he first promoted, Arias has actually done pretty good. In his first 14 games, Arias batted .184 with a .530 OPS, but in his last 20 games he is batting .296 with a .759 OPS. He has cut his strikeout rate from 25% down to 17% over that time frame as well. You also should remember that Arias is doing this while being one of the youngest players in Salem. Right now he is 2.5 years younger than the average competition, and he is still holding his own. Arias isn't necessarily the type of guy who is destined to light the world on fire, but there is a path for him to be a really, really good major league player and become their next top tier prospect and a very good major leaguer. Right now, with his current projections, his path to becoming an everyday shortstop could be somebody who plays an above-average defensive shortstop with a good arm strength and above-average contact and average power. I like him right now as maybe like a Starlin Castro, a Asdrubal Cabrera, or Jed Lowry type player potentially, as somebody who can stabilize the bat in the bottom half of the lineup and be a very solid to good shortstop in the league. But like I said, he is still very young and a fast-rising prospect, so he could exceed those expectations quickly if he continues to improve into next season. Our next player on this list is the shiny new toy for the Red Sox, and that is Braden Montgomery, ranked at number 61 overall. Montgomery was just drafted in July of 2024, number 12 by the Red Sox, and signed a $5 million bonus after playing collegiate ball at Texas A&M. Montgomery was a standout two-way player originally in high school and was known for his incredible throwing arm in the outfield, his raw power at the plate, and being able to touch 98 miles per hour on the mound. In his last season at Texas A&M before the draft, Braden primarily played in the outfield and played out of his mind offensively. He would slash .332 with a .454 on-base percentage, a .733 slugging percentage, with an 1187 OPS, 27 home runs, and 85 RBI in just 61 games. Just to give you a little comparison, Aaron Judge is batting this so far this season and is pretty clearly the AL MVP. Now obviously there's a difference between what Judge is doing at the major leagues and what Montgomery did while playing with metal bats collegiately, but the point should still be clear. Montgomery is dominating the competition. In fact, he was so good that he was very likely going to be a top 10 pick and even possibly a top 5 pick heading into the 2024 draft before he broke his ankle trying to slide into the plate during the college playoffs a month prior to the MLB draft and hurting his draft stock. MLB Pipeline had him ranked at number 8 overall heading into that draft, and Baseball America had him at number 5. Even after that injury, he was still expected to be gone before the Red Sox had a chance at number 12, but somehow he fell all the way down to Boston. Montgomery will likely rehab and start on schedule for the 2025 season at 22 years old, and while with any prospect it remains to be seen how well they're going to perform, Montgomery has a lot of pedigree behind him to stand on. One of the most exciting things about Montgomery is the fact that he's also a switch hitter, and while there was some concern that he might abandon switch hitting, that doesn't appear to be the case as of right now. The Red Sox really haven't had a solid switch hitter in the lineup since Daniel Nava, and before that, Jason Varitek. It's really hard to give a comparison at this stage in time to see what Braden could be, but if we were to give some sort of comparison, he's going to be somebody who can be a true power-hitting corner outfielder with a solid hit tool, a great outfield arm, and a dangerous threat in almost every aspect of the game. I think of someone right now ranging from like a Hunter Renfroe to maybe a Trot Nixon type player at least, as somebody who in their peak years will give you a true middle-of-the-order bat and plus defense in the outfield. Alright, now here's where the prospect rankings get really good. Now while Montgomery and Arias certainly are exciting prospects, there's almost no chance that either one of them sees any Major League action before the 2027 Major League season. The final 4 prospects on this list will all certainly be promoted to the big league club by the end of 2025 barring any major injury, as they are all currently playing at AAA. And all 4 of these players have the potential to be true impact players in the future for the Boston Red Sox. The first player from this group is Kyle Teel, and he is ranked number 26th overall by Baseball America. Kyle Teel was drafted with the Boston Red Sox's first pick in the 2023 MLB draft, number 14 overall out of the University of Virginia, and was very much like Montgomery, a pick that Boston did not expect to be there for them. Baseball America had Teel ranked as the number 7 overall prospect heading into the 2023 MLB draft and the number 1 overall catching prospect that year, but he shockingly fell 7 spots down to the Red Sox. Now, unlike Braden Montgomery falling into the Red Sox's lap due to injury, Kyle Teel falling to the Red Sox really didn't have a good reason. Now, 7 spots might not feel like a lot in the draft, but when we're talking this early in the first round, this is a massive slide. This would be similar to if someone who was ranked the 20th best prospect fell all the way down to number 50. It's just not something you see very often, so when he ended up being available for the Red Sox at number 14, there was really no argument as to who they were going to take. Since joining the Red Sox organization, Teel has done basically everything you could possibly hope for from him. Teel quickly rose all the way up to AA by the end of that year in just a 26-game sample size. This isn't super uncommon for collegiate players to rise quickly, as they are usually more polished than players taken out of high school or signed internationally, but how he performed along the way was very impressive. Across 3 levels of the minor league system that year, he would bat .363 with a .483 on-base percentage, a .977 OPS with 2 home runs and 8 extra base hits, and a strong 21-22 walk to K rate. This season, Teel started the year at AA and performed fantastic. Teel batted .299 with a .390 on-base percentage, a .462 slugging, and an .852 OPS with 11 home runs and 31 extra base hits, showing off good plate discipline but did strike out a bit more than you would like to see with 48 walks against 87 strikeouts. Many considered his promotion to AAA long overdue, and finally the Red Sox promoted he, Marcelo Mayer, and Roman Anthony all at the same time on August 12th of this season. Since Teel's drafting, these 3 prospects have largely been associated with one another, and it does appear, at least as of right now, that the Red Sox organization is being very intentional about keeping them together. Since being promoted to AAA, Teel has struggled quite a bit overall, as he is only batting .191 with a .547 OPS and just a single home run over 17 games. But this is an extremely small sample size and should not really be taken seriously. Similar to Franklin Arias after his promotion, Teel started off extremely cold in his first few starts at the AAA level. In his first 13 games, Teel was just 6 for 58 with a single extra base hit and a .118 batting average, but it seems over his last 4 games he's figured out his swing and he's gone 7 for 17 with a .412 batting average and hit his first AAA home run. Remember, these are all very, very young players who have actual human lives outside of baseball with feelings and emotions, as these are not just fictional players that we see with stats on the back of pieces of cardboard, as that is something that many fans often completely ignore. Kyle Teel is a very good prospect, and odds are that he's going to be a very good Major League player. One of the things that I have not mentioned yet is that outside of his strong ability at the plate, Teel is well above average defensive catcher, who boasts a strong arm behind the plate and does a great job pitch framing, which still does matter, especially to those of us who've had to watch Connor Wong struggle in that regard all season long. He also has a high baseball IQ, which has gotten very strong reviews from his teammates who really seem to enjoy throwing to him. When you put all of the pieces together for Teel, you get a picture of a player who's going to potentially be a true above-average catcher at the major league level. And if he develops the way that many of us think that he will, you could see him become a JT Realmuto, Will Smith type catcher who genuinely impacts the game in almost every facet possible, and regularly should compete for all-star appearances and be in the conversation for Gold Gloves behind the plate. The next prospect on our list is Kristian Campbell, one spot ahead of Kyle Teel at number 25. Kristian Campbell was drafted in the 4th round of the 2023 MLB draft out of Georgia Tech, the same draft as Kyle Teel, and was the compensation pick for losing Xander Bogaerts in free agency. In a similar way to how Roman Anthony exploded onto the scene last year, Kristian Campbell has very likely had the most shocking ascension up the prospect rankings this season out of every minor league player in baseball. Campbell is an infield-outfield prospect, and his rocketing rise up the prospect rankings is something that hasn't been seen in the Red Sox organization in a long time for someone of his position in the draft. But if you're a Red Sox fan watching this, I think you'll be pretty pleased to see which player I'm talking about in this comparison, as I think he turned out to be a pretty decent ball player. Campbell played in 22 games last season between rookie ball and high A and performed very well, slashing .309, .441, .471 with a .911 OPS and collected 7 extra base hits, leading to a positive outlook for him heading into the 2024 season. At the start of this year, Campbell began in high A and absolutely dominated the competition over 40 games, as he would slash .306 with a .418 on-base percentage and a .976 OPS with 8 home runs and 21 extra base hits before being promoted to AA. One of the most surprising things about this run was the added power that had not been seen from Campbell during his time in the Red Sox organization thus far, as a full 162-game season at that rate would have yielded him 32 home runs, and prior to the start of that year, he was not really viewed as somebody who had above-average power. But it was a positive start for the year, and the Red Sox organization was excited to see what he could do as his next step up the minor league ladder, and well, he might as well have skipped that step altogether because he absolutely dominated in AA. In 56 games there, Campbell batted .362 with a .463 on-base percentage, a .582 slugging, and a .1045 OPS, yielding 8 home runs and 28 extra base hits. For a player who had already begun this season producing at a very high level, this performance was starting to enter the stratosphere for how well he had done. Outside of these stats, the first of 2 major takeaways from his time at AA for me would be his increase in stolen base attempts. Campbell has always been known for somebody who has plus speed, but prior to his stint at AA, we hadn't really seen it. Although once he did get to that level, he stole 17 bags in 22 attempts, which is a pretty decent ratio and would prorate out to 49 steals over a 162-game season. The second big takeaway from that time at AA was his strikeout to walk rate significantly improving. Campbell was already walking at an elite rate at high A, but his strikeouts were a bit higher than you'd like to see. Once he got to AA, however, he slashed his strikeout rate almost in half while still maintaining that elite walk rate. This is very rare for a player to be able to do this at any point, but for somebody to promote up a level and also achieve this feat all in the same season is extremely impressive. All of these insanely positive stats led some to wonder why Campbell wasn't promoted to AAA along with the big 3 prospects, as he was far outperforming all of them from a statistical point of view, but that question didn't have to linger long, as just 6 days later he was promoted to AAA along with them. Since arriving at AAA, Campbell has really just done what he's done all season, which is produce at the highest level possible. In 13 games since his promotion, Campbell is batting .300 with a .444 on-base percentage, a .580 slugging percentage, and a .1024 OPS, and has hit 4 more home runs and stolen 3 bases while still maintaining and even improving upon his elite walk rate. One thing offensively that is also very important that is really completely unrelated to anything in Kristian Campbell's control is that he bats right-handed. The reason this matters so much right now is that the current Red Sox roster really doesn't have a strong right-handed bat that could be put at the top of the lineup, as all of their top offensive players are left-handed outside of Tyler O'Neill, but he's not signed through next season. Not only this, but all 3 of the big 3 prospects are also left-handed, meaning that Campbell's bat could play an extremely important role moving forward if he can produce at the major league level. The last thing that I have not touched on with Campbell is that defensively he doesn't really have a set position right now, as he has played all over the infield and outfield in order to try to find out what fits. Right now it looks like the Red Sox are trying to get him to play second base regularly, as if he's going to be part of the Major League Ball Club next season, which seems very likely, because there is an opening at that position for playing time. Campbell moving around the diamond is also not to discredit his ability to play at these positions, as from what has been reported, he has performed very well at many of these spots and should provide at least solid to average defense wherever he ends up due to his high athleticism. Overall, Campbell right now profiles as somebody who very likely will be a regular 2020 threat with a good batting average and with the potential to exceed those expectations even further and be somebody who can compete for regular All-Star appearances. I look at somebody as like what Christian Yelich has been able to do for the Milwaukee Brewers the last few seasons as a really good comparison to what we potentially could see from Kristian Campbell. There is a legitimate argument to be made that Kristian Campbell might be the second best prospect in the Red Sox organization and a top 10 prospect in all of baseball. For almost every team out there, he might be their best prospect, but the Red Sox do not have your average everyday farm system, and there are two more players on this list who have him beat as of right now. Either way, whether he's the best prospect, the third best prospect, or 10th best, the Red Sox fans should be very excited about what you're going to see from Kristian Campbell very soon. The second highest ranked Red Sox prospect on Baseball America's Top 100 list is Marcelo Mayer at number 11. Marcelo Mayer was the first in the new wave of prospects that is dominating this list for the Red Sox and was drafted in the first round of the 2021 MLB draft, 4th overall out of high school. Mayer was seen at the time of his drafting as a true perennial all-star caliber player and by many major publications should have been the number 1 overall draft pick that year. However, very much like Kyle Teel and Braden Montgomery, he fell right into the Red Sox lap at number 4 overall. Mayer is a true shortstop with a true shortstop frame. He has a strong arm defensively and has instinctive actions playing the position that make him a safe bet to stay there long term and be a plus defender in the process. Marcelo Mayer's minor league career has been a little more up and down than some of his peers on this list, but it has been due to several injuries that has hampered his progression and slowed his production at times during his time within the organization. That said, in the times where Marcelo has been healthy and able to play on a consistent basis, he has produced at a very high level. In 66 games in Single-A back in 2022, Marcelo batted .286 with a .406 on-base percentage and a .504 slugging, good for a .910 OPS, 9 home runs, 36 extra base hits, and a perfect 16-0 in stolen base attempts. This season, while playing at Portland, Mayer played 77 games there and batted .307 with a .370 on-base percentage, .480 slugging, and .850 OPS with 36 extra base hits and 13 stolen bases. This led to him being promoted to AAA along with Kyle Teel and Roman Anthony on August 12th. However, he never appeared in a game there as he was shut down for the season with a lower back strain. Mayer is one of those guys where you look at his numbers and you can feel really good about them, and you can feel really good about the type of player that he's going to be. A common comparison for Mayer has been that of a Corey Seager, and as I have mentioned in previous videos, I think this is a very fair comparison when you actually compare him to the Seager that we saw early on with the Dodgers, and not the player that we have seen with Texas. Because while I don't expect him to hit for 30-plus home runs regularly, I think he will very comfortably settle into that 20 to 25 home run range in his prime and possibly challenge a 300 batting average regularly while providing above-average defense at a premier position. And while he might not have as sexy of a peak as the next player on this list, he still very likely could be the type of guy you want batting at the top or middle of the lineup for a championship caliber baseball team. And while the concern about his recent injury history is valid, I think writing up a prospect as injury prone this early on is premature. And while he's been with the organization longer than anybody on this list, Mayer is still just 21 years old, younger than both Kyle Teel and Kristian Campbell, who were drafted just last year. Regardless of it, Mayer has the potential to be like a lot of these prospects, a regular all-star caliber player who should compete for Gold Gloves and Silver Sluggers year in and year out, and as Red Sox fans, that should be something extremely exciting. So we talked in depth about the shocking rise of Kristian Campbell just a bit ago and how he very well be the number 2 Red Sox prospect in the system. Well, the reason that he's not number 1 is because of Roman Anthony. Roman Anthony is the clear top Red Sox prospect, and Baseball America has him now ranked the number 2 overall prospect in baseball. Although honestly, they might as well just rank him number 1 because the current number 1 in Junior Caminero was recently recalled by the Tampa Bay Rays, and he doesn't appear to be going anywhere soon, which means barring any injury from Caminero, he will have enough appearances to graduate off this list in a few weeks, making Roman Anthony the number 1 overall prospect. Anthony was drafted as the second to last pick in the second round of the 2022 MLB draft as an outfielder out of high school and was maybe the best pick the Red Sox have made in a decade. Now, the drafting of Roman Anthony was not an accident. I talked about this in a previous video and plan on making a more in-depth video discussing it in the offseason, but Anthony was specifically targeted by the Red Sox organization in a draft strategy that is called overslotting. Basically, to summarize, the Red Sox drafted 2 players earlier in the draft that they knew would be able to sign for less money in order to be able to draft Roman Anthony later in the draft and give him a bigger bonus. Anthony was undervalued in the draft by most MLB teams and was committed to the University of Mississippi to play collegiate baseball, so many teams were not expecting to be able to sign him if they did draft him, and they were unwilling to give him first-round money. But the Red Sox seized an opportunity to draft players they still liked earlier in the draft to be able to draft the player they really liked later on. This worked out amazingly for the Red Sox, as his 2023 campaign saw him as one of the biggest breakout prospects of that year. That season, Anthony actually performed pretty poorly at Single-A, but the underlying metrics surrounding his exit velocity and batted ball and play data told a different story about a player who was really getting unlucky, so even with his below-average performance, he was still promoted to High A, where he exploded upon the scene. Anthony played 54 games at High A and batted .294 with a .412 on-base percentage, a .569 slugging, and a .981 OPS with 12 home runs and 29 extra base hits. One important thing to remember here is that Anthony was doing all this fresh out of high school at 19 years old, over 3 years younger than the average competition at that level. This insane run led him to being promoted to Double-A at the end of that season, and in 10 games there, he performed even better, going 12 for 35 with a .343 batting average and .1020 OPS. After his skyrocketing movement up the rankings, he was now a top 25 prospect by every major baseball publication and was already seen as a top 10 prospect according to Baseball Prospectus. At the start of that 2024 season, Roman Anthony would be assigned to Double-A, and over 84 games there, he batted .269 with a .367 on-base percentage, a .489 slugging percentage, and a .956 OPS, with 15 home runs, 38 extra base hits, and 16 stolen bases. Now, these are very good numbers, but again, as has been seen with Anthony throughout his time within the organization, it's the underlying metrics that really tell the story for his potential. Roman has the hardest hit ball this season in the Red Sox organization. Now, this includes the major league level with guys like Tyler O'Neill, Tristan Casas, and even Rafael Devers. Isolated power is a metric that basically ranks how much slugging a player generates per at-bat, and his was .220 at Double-A, which would rank 24th in Major League Baseball this season right now, ahead of guys like Elly De La Cruz and only 7 points behind NL MVP candidate Francisco Lindor. Since being promoted to Triple-A, he has only improved, and his numbers are finally starting to reflect the type of player he can truly become. In 20 games so far at Triple-A, Anthony is batting .338 with a .421 on-base percentage, a .550 slugging, and a .971 OPS, with 3 home runs and 10 extra base hits. Now, the most exciting thing about the small sample size for me easily has to be that not only has he maintained his elite walk rate, but he has cut his strikeout rate significantly while increasing his batting average and still hitting the ball with authority in this time frame. Anthony has also performed very well in the field, where he has primarily played center field with an above-average arm and above-average range and the ability to track the ball. But with Cedon Rafaela very likely primarily playing center field in 2025 and Jarren Duran sliding over to left field, it seems that Anthony will be destined to battle for playing time in right field with Wilyer Abreu whenever the Red Sox feel he's ready for the show. But honestly, the kid might be ready right now. And when I say kid, I mean kid. Anthony is the youngest player out of everybody on this list outside of Franklin Arias. He is younger than the Red Sox first-round draft pick this season, Braden Montgomery, and he is playing at Triple-A and absolutely dominating at that level. This is the type of production that you really don't see often from somebody this young. If I were to try to tell you the type of player that I could see Roman Anthony becoming, he's very possibly going to be a guy who's going to hit you 30-plus home runs regularly while stealing 20 or more bases, playing a great outfield defense, and being a perennial all-star and MVP candidate. And if you want a player comparison, I just can't get Kyle Tucker out of my head when I think of Roman Anthony. And for those of you who don't know, Kyle Tucker at age 27 already has 3 straight all-star appearances, has won a Gold Glove, has won a Silver Slugger, and placed 5th in MVP voting. It truly does feel like that everything is aligning for Roman Anthony at the right time. And for a 2024 Red Sox team that has seen some amazing performances from their young players this year, it truly does feel like that 2025 could be one of the most exciting seasons that any team has seen from the young players in a very long time. Thank you all for watching this video. Please comment down below as your thoughts on the Red Sox farm system and the Baseball America Top 100 update. I look forward to hearing from you all, and if you guys did enjoy this video, please consider liking and subscribing, that way you don't miss a thing moving forward. Thank you all again, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.